Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Frog in the throat. Sunday chat today, bits and pieces, and then I'm going to do a spotlight on a genus. I think I've got either 7 or 8 plants in that genus. Any guesses yet? But I'll break off in between because I'll need to move the plants out. Can't film them where they are. And we'll have a look at those and a chat. When you do a genus and you offer a care guide, it has to be a generalisation because depending on the size of the genus, for example, think about trying to do a care guide for Dendrobiums. See how far you get. Far too many variables, far too many different types within the genus. And this genus has some variables, but nowhere near as many. So I can do a generalisation which would work for most, not all. Always get down, when you're looking at species, get down to that species, look it up, find out where it comes from, how high up, yeah, and low temperatures, high temperatures, all that sort of stuff. Do yourself a favour, work out that, preferably before you buy it. That way you don't bring home something that isn't going to work in your environment. Do the work first. If you can. I mean, I do spur of the moments. You know, it does happen. I see something, I think I'm having that. And I get it home and think, oh God, that's a warm grower. That's not going to do very well here. It happens. But if you do the work first, it pays. Right. Thank yous. Thank you for all the support with these health issues. I got one little update. I had another phone call from the consultant that I saw when I had my echo and chat about everything. And he said, our team have looked at your results and your history and everything like that, and they would like to offer you a procedure should you choose to accept it. How often has that ever happened? Has anybody ever heard of that before? Normally, if a hospital says there's a procedure you need it. It's not open to debate, is it? But this one is simply because I don't have lots of symptoms to go with my problem, which is atrial fibrillation, AF. If they hadn't found it, I wouldn't have known I had it, let's put it that way, apart from getting short of breath now and again. So the fact that I haven't got lots of symptoms and it's not affecting my life, having the procedure to fix it wouldn't make any difference to me. I wouldn't know even probably whether it's even worked or not. And occasionally it doesn't work. And like any procedure, the procedure has risks, yeah? Whereas staying as I am on the tablets, the risks are right down about as low as you can get, you know. Lower than walking about, you know, in traffic. But yeah, so I said to them, well, thanks for the offer. If circumstances change and I start getting effects, then you'll hear from me. But apart from that, I think I'll not bother, thank you very much. So it's a very strange set of circumstances. But there's not many who've ever heard of that. A procedure that you have a choice on. Whereas most of the time they say, if you don't have this procedure, it's going to be bad. So anyway, that's where we are with that. So keep taking the tablets and carry on as normal, sort of thing. Yeah, that'll do. Right, stuff coming up, not a lot. The next event, Orchid event, is the Burnham's 75th anniversary festival, they're calling it. It's basically every month they have one weekend where they open. They normally only open weekdays now. So they only open one weekend a month, and this is that weekend, but it's a special celebration for their 75th year. So there's 4 orchid societies putting on displays, and there's some talks and things, so you know, it'll be a nice weekend. I'll be going on the Saturday. I'm reasonably certain Hannah's going to come down. I'll pick her up on the Friday. We'll set off Saturday morning bright and early, well, early. Pick up Lynn on the way and off we go. Nice breakfast on the way at our usual place, and then a day at Burnham's, and catch up with lots of people I know. There's quite a few people I'm getting to know better at those orchid societies because I see them more often. Yeah, so there's that. That's the, I've forgotten what the date is now, it's around the 21st anyway, so 3 weeks time. 3 weekends at a time, there we go. The weekend before that is the Orchid Society meeting. That doesn't affect things to do with the channel because it's on a Saturday afternoon. So I can still film on the Saturday and it doesn't spoil the Sunday chat, which I still prefer to do on a Sunday. I hear lots of people agreeing that it's better on a Sunday. It is, that's just how it's gone over the years. It's the Sunday chat. You know, some people, I'm sure, only ever watch this video, don't watch the rest of the various things that happen during the week. So, and as far as people watching, thank yous to everybody who supports the channel in whatever way. The most basic support you can do is an unsubscribed person who watches the videos. That's the least you can do. Does that count? Yes, it does. It's still a view. And the number of views on the videos are tracked by YouTube, and it helps them promote a video, which helps promote the channel. If a video is promoted, it means that some people might click on that in that margin and watch the channel for the first time. Stay there for 10 seconds and never be seen again. But the idea is that they stay. Yes, that's the idea. The next best thing, of course, is exactly the same. Unsubscribed, watches the videos, but watches at least 30 seconds of the adverts. Why is that important? Because that's how people get paid. YouTube coughs up no money if the adverts are skipped. Yeah? So, if you didn't know that, you do now. Then obviously there's the more, you know, sort of regular financial support that comes in with membership and the patron site, and the odd buy me a coffee. Don't forget that's still sat there. Some people actually use that relatively frequently. The idea of the buy me a coffee is a one-off donation for a video that was particularly useful for you. It actually helped you out, you know, in some shape or form, and it's like leaving a tip. That's what that one's for. And all the links to this lot are in the description of every single video. It's not like you have to go to a special place. The description has them all in. All the links are there. The other link that's there, should you choose to use it, is the link to the Facebook group. The Facebook group was set up specifically, it's not directly linked to the channel, but it is, because it's sort of my Facebook group, because lots of people wanted to send me pictures of things and you can't on YouTube. Yeah? So I set up the Facebook group where people can post pictures and things like that, questions. And quite honestly, that's self-supporting. All I do is administer the posts and allow them. Occasionally I disallow one, but it's very, very rare. We don't get hassles on that Facebook group. I've only had a couple in the whole number of years I've been running it. But basically it's a place where you can post pictures of your orchids and things and questions and stuff without having a YouTube channel. Yeah, so that's what that's for. The link for that is also in the description. So that's all that, and thanks to everyone who supports any of this in any shape or form. It is appreciated. So thanks a bunch. What else? Stuff going on in the garden? Not really. I did an update after Hannah and I did some work last weekend. I've still got some work to do on some of the bonsai trees, which I'm hoping to get going on this week, because I'm a bit behind with that. It's not major works, I mean, there's no repotting or anything this time of year. It's just tidying up, really. And I have to do a specific bonsai video as part of a collaboration with another bonsai channel. In fact, the channel's called Not Another Bonsai Channel, but I'm doing a collaboration, so I've got to do a short video on what I believe is a bonsai. And several people are going to join together with short videos, 5 to 10 minutes apparently, all linked together by the guy who runs that channel. So he's hoping to do that by the end of July, so I need to get on and make my contribution. So that needs to be done this week, definitely, even if I don't get the other bits and pieces done. Apart from that, there's not much else actually going on. Not really. Next door has re-emphasised the fact that he needs to get on with moving house. Basically, when he says he needs to get on with something, what actually happens? Absolutely nothing. Let me just let Nuisance in. He's sitting there looking mournful. Come on then. Yes, our little heat wave is over, if you could call it that. I didn't call that a heat wave. Yes, it was warm. And when you get the clear skies and you get the sun on the roof for the full amount of time available, this place gets warm. I mean, we were up to 30. I don't want 30. 26, 27 is as high as I would like. I can't stop it. You know, I'm not going into shade netting all over the place and this, that and the other for what is a short period of time, quite honestly. And today, you know, there's no blue sky showing, complete cloud cover. And last night was quite cold. When I got up this morning, I thought, oh, that's a bit nippy for the middle of summer. So yeah, weather comes and goes, and it looks like we've got unsettled weather now, which means I'm back to normal temperatures in here, which means I don't have to keep my eye on it quite so much. When the heat's there like that with the sun, I mean obviously the fan's got to be on, and I have to come in every now and again and put the humidifier on. I can't leave it on because there's no escape for the air, it will just get up to 100% eventually. And then we start thinking about rotting and all stuff like that. So I turn it on, wait for it to rise up a bit and then turn it off for a while and then repeat as necessary until the sun leaves the roof, at which point the temperature starts to drop. So that's what we've got to do. Now I watered everything on Friday, well most things, not absolutely everything, but most things. I'm starting to get a bit of scale around. 2 plants actually got sprayed. That means I need to use the hot box. Now the hot box lends itself as a problem because it can only be used without the fan. It's got to be still air. The function is a funnel effect. The heat rises up through the tube and draws out the fumes from the molten sulfur. Not burning sulfur. Don't go into panic mode. There's no harmful fumes. People use it in nurseries while they're working in there. Well, I don't want to be in here when it's running. That I find the smell a little of. Well, it smells like you know what sulfur smells like? Bad eggs, stink bombs. And I don't particularly want that. So I can't currently really use it during the day, which is what I did last year. So I didn't want to use it at night. But I have no other choice. Now the problem with using it at night is first thing in the morning, when Mojo's has his breakfast, he needs to go out. He's been shut in all night. Yeah, and that's important. So while he's having his breakfast, I've got to try and change the air in here. Now that will be literally putting the fan in that doorway so that the air it's drawing into it comes from inside the house, and opening the door wide and putting it on full and just blast the air out of here. And it might not clear it all, but it's going to dilute it substantially by the time Mojo needs to go out. And then I can leave it like that for a while. You know, it's warm enough now, it's summertime, that it's not going to drop the temperature badly. The change of air will probably do the plants some good as well. Get some actual well, it's not really fresh air coming from the house, but yeah, so that's the only way I think I can use the hot box. Okay, it's going to be on all night, you know, it's going to be on from like 9 o'clock when I go to bed till the silly o'clock when I get up, which this morning was 4:10. I can hear everybody deep intake of breath. What? That's the middle of the night. Well, no, it's not, it's daylight. And it's Mojo that insists, so it's got to be done. But yeah, so that's the only way I can use the hot box is overnight, and so that's the plan, and that may well check the forecast, check the nighttime temperature. It's the nighttime temperature that's important if I'm going to have the door open at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah? So if it's going to be a particularly cold night, that's not the night to choose. However, if it's a mild night, it won't matter if the door's open first thing in the morning. Clear the air out. And then we'll need to do it a couple of times, and then we get back to, I haven't used it for quite a long time now, and it's only just now that the scale is starting to get about. So it did its job, and it's lasted well. Seagull. Either that or somebody's throttling a cat. So that's the bug saga. They're not bad, but one plant was. I manually removed as many as I could, took a plant outside and absolutely soaked it with the bug spray, systemic, and I'll keep my eye on it. And guess which one it was? Yes, it was a black hair type Dendrobium. They're like a magnet, they really are. But not many other places, but a couple where there was just a sign, you know, like some round the base of one pseudobulb, but not the whole plant sort of thing. So they're getting about, so we need to deal with them. Right, so that's that. I'm keeping up with watering. Nowhere near as frequent as a lot of other people do, I bet, but a lot of that is media choice in some cases, not all. And certainly my odontoglossums, they were put in the small bark perlite and sphagnum moss, broken up sphagnum moss, as a suitable medium for them. And yes, it is, but it's staying wet too long. So those are going to get systematically repotted with far less moss. They will still have some, but far less. That way the media will dry a bit quicker. Because certainly when temperatures are lower, those type of plants with soggy media will rot the roots as soon as you look at them. So that's that. Right, so I will break off now and get the plants, or sort myself out. I want to be able to pick the plants up one at a time, show you and have a chat about them, but I need somewhere to put them. So, and I need the camera somewhere other than where it is now, because it's in the way. So I'll be back. Okay, we're going to have a look at my Coelogynes. Now this is a genus that at the other place I tried and failed. Plants did not do well, and most of them went to other people before they went too far downhill, including one I will try and get back, and that might happen at the Orchid Festival when I see the person I gave it to, which is Sean. I had a very large Coelogyne cristata, like a basket full, and it wasn't doing well, wasn't blooming, and so it went to somebody else. And my Mooreana just didn't do very well, shriveled up and new growths failed. It just didn't do well. So I stopped having anything to do with Coelogynes. Well, now I've got the cooler temperatures and quite honestly a better light, because you have to bear in mind at the other place not only did I get much better temperatures for 7-8 months of the year, because as soon as the sun hit the glass the temperature went up. Even in January that happened, so I always got better temperatures there. But the other thing that was different was light. Now, although when the sun came round, in the winter I used to remove the shade netting completely, so the sun was shining on the glass, and low in the sky, winter sun, straight through the glass, lit up the whole place. So I had bright light in the winter, which I don't get here. Okay, there is no shading, but we're the north side of the house, and a huge big house is next to it there. Huge big hedge there. This is not as bright, so I don't get that bright winter light, which is probably why my plants don't start growing early like they did at the other place. I always keep thinking, well, they don't start growing till late, so they haven't got time to mature their growths. But that's just the way the light is here. That's what I've got, you know, so I'm sort of stuck with it. But I've got cooler temperatures here, and that's more important. When you're looking at Coelogynes, many are classed as shady. Yeah, well, remember what I've said about shady compared with the likes of southern China and places, Thailand, Taiwan, Laos, things like that. Get up the mountains where it starts getting cooler. That's quite bright light. It's clear air as well, yeah? So what they class as shady, here I like to think of as shady bright. So mine are on a top shelf, back away from anywhere near that sun that comes on the roof. They don't get any of that, but they are in pretty good light and cooler temperatures generally speaking, definitely cooler in winter, which they like, and some are terrestrials, so go careful. And in amongst them, some are warmer growers. So you need to look them up at plant level, because there are some that are really high up growers, quite high elevations, and they're cold growers. They don't like any form of heat at all. They just stop growing. They shut down. And you've got others that are warmer growers. They come from more lowland areas, and they can take a bit of heat. They're okay with that. Some Coelogynes can head down towards freezing in the winter, providing they're not wet. Others are more sensitive and shouldn't get some cold. There are some that are classed as cold growers, and their guidelines for the winter is protect from frost. That's it. So yeah, quite a variety of temperatures. Don't tend to like direct sun by any means. I don't know any that like that level of light. And as I said, don't forget some are actually terrestrials. They do grow on the ground, but most are epiphytes. So there we go. Practically all, if you look up care, wherever you find it, will say they like humidity. They really like humidity if the temperatures start to climb. Higher temperatures and low humidity, they will lose their hydration very quickly and start to desiccate. They will not be happy. So take your choices. Now I've got one that's doing very badly. It might pick up. Oh, the other thing, yes, some Coelogynes sulk. Some sulk badly. I had one once that did nothing for over 2 years, and then it put up a new growth. It still didn't grow any roots. Most I would say, don't like root disturbance. They just don't like that. It upsets them. So I would say that you treat them a bit like zygopetalums, very, very gently and delicately, with as little root disturbance as possible, very gentle all round. They don't like it, and you can be as careful as you like and they still might sulk. So, you know, you just have to try and do it at a suitable time when you know the roots are going to come, and try not to mess up the current root system that you've got, if you've got one. They can be grown from a single back bulb with no roots. So I'm just finishing my coffee because the time I've done the plants is going to be virtually cold now anyway. Right, Coelogynes. This is a relatively new plant. I've recently repotted this, so there's a video on this hanging around somewhere. And this is Holochila. I will put pop-ups up. Now this one we had to peg it. Yeah, so you can see the metal piece of thick wire holding that rhizome down, and that's because it was sticking up in the air. So by holding it down, any roots that come off of this particular growth will go down in the pot. They will get in the pot. We'll have a look at all of them as far as roots are concerned. This didn't have much going on in the root department. A lot of the roots were old and tired, but if you look very carefully in amongst these browny coloured roots, which are the old and tired ones, you will see little white bits sticking out. That's new root tips. And up here is a big new root tip. Guess where that's come from? That's come off the base of that rhizome that's been pegged down, so it's working. So little white shoots meant that those old tired roots weren't as old and tired as perhaps thought, because they are coming back into growth. So yeah, this one's got a strange name. It's Holochila or Chila, depends on how you pronounce CH. And this is one of those, I believe, that has, you've got different types of Coelogynes. They do have specific names, the type, and it's how they bloom. Yeah? Now, traditionally, if you think of oncidium types, they produce a bulb with some leaves, yeah? And the spike comes out near the base of the bulb, down in one of the, in the base of one of the leaves. Not outside the leaf, it comes out from inside the leaf, yeah? Now, some Coelogynes grow like that, and they will produce a spike from the base of a bulb. Others, like this one, produce their spike out of the centre of a new growth. So the new growth starts, and then the leaves just start to show, and the spike comes straight out of the middle. And for a while the leaves virtually stop growing while it's in bloom. Then the spike goes over, and that continues to grow, produces its leaves, and then produces the bulb. Yeah? So that's a type. So they do vary. This is doing okay. It's a young plant, well, it's a young division, it's not a young plant at all. And it could have come off a basketful, who knows. But when you get a division that's got some reasonable bulbs as backup, as opposed to a young plant which hasn't, because it's got tiny little bulbs, you're going to get to flowering size again sooner than if it was a young plant as such. So that one's doing okay. That's coming along nicely. That new growth got nice leaves. Previous bulb has leaves. It's doing okay. Next one. Now this one hasn't been repotted since I got it. It's about to get done because it's producing new roots. And this one, well, this one's a cross of Usitana crossed with salmon summit or other. I'll do pop-ups. Now this is another one that blooms that way, but it is slightly different. Yeah. So new growth. Yeah. Only one leaf, but it can produce two. It does vary, and the spike comes out of the centre. The difference with this one is occasionally it's sequential. Now this one looked as though it was going to be sequential, but the second bud blasted. It's not a strong enough plant. There's just not enough of it. And again, a recent division, couple of very shriveled old bulbs with no leaves. This bulb's not shriveled, but it's quite small. The new growth is quite good, and if you look down at the base, if I can tip it over, at the base of that new growth, you can see the new roots starting. So that hasn't been repotted since I got it. It's now going to get repotted at my first opportunity because I don't know what it's in. It's not in a clear pot and I can't see what's going on, and I don't like that. So we've got new roots coming out. I doubt if we've got a very good root system on that somehow. But, with that new growth, and if I catch those roots right and they take and get down into the media and there's plenty of them, then that'll be a nice plant. Maybe. But it's growing, that's the main thing, it's pushing on. Next one is another relatively recent division that also needs repotting. Now this is Coelogyne Speciosa variety Burnham. So this is one of Burnham's own registered versions. What this basically is, this comes down to plants produced from seed, basically. So you've got two species, one's crossed with the other, so it's still the species, and you get a lot of seedlings, yeah? And occasionally you get variety within those seedlings, and sometimes you get one that's a bit special, like the blooms might be quite a bit bigger, or a deeper colour in the lip, or something a bit different that's worth getting it in front of the RHS to see if you can get an award. If you get an award, you get to give it a name, and then that's its registered name. So that's what's happened here. And then all divisions from that point on can be called the same. So this one's coming on. This one is now doing new roots in two places. So we've got a growth here producing new roots, and this growth over here producing new roots. Those are the two latest growths. So in theory this could be quite a vigorous plant because it's produced two new growths on what is a pretty small division. So this also needs a repot. Again, I don't know what's in the pot. So and this one I can't remember. This might have been in bloom when I got it. I can't remember. If I've got a picture of it, then it was. If I haven't got a picture, so there's no pop-up of a picture, then it hasn't bloomed for me. Occasionally something blooms for me and I don't get a picture. Not often though, because I can get a still from the video, and I always film things that come into bloom. So this one, each bulb has one very big leaf, very wide, yeah? So it looks quite different to most Coelogynes, and it does only have one leaf. One giant leaf in the middle. So that is probably doing okay as long as I can get those roots in some decent media and the bulbs don't shrivel. Then it's a nice steady going plant at the moment. So okay. The next one is the one that's not doing okay, and this is Nitida, and it is in a bit of a state. It's got virtually no roots, and when I repotted it, it had no roots. The bulbs are incredibly desiccated, very bad, and at the moment this is the only new growth that it put up, and it wobbles in the pot. This is another new growth that just seems to have stopped growing. It's not going to go anywhere. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with this. There's the tiniest of new growth starting there, or I hope it's a new growth, because if it's trying to bloom it's going to fail. There's no strength in that plant at all. Every single bulb is badly shriveled. But nonetheless, it does have some reasonable leaves. Okay, that one's got a bad end to it. But the leaves on these shriveled bulbs in some cases are not bad at all. So it can still photosynthesize and get some of those sugars in there, but there's not much storage left there because the bulbs are so shriveled. So this is not doing well at all. This is the one that just isn't doing well at all. Not very good at all. Now this is a Burnham's registered version as well. On the label it says Coelogyne Orchids. It's in fact Nitida, it changed its name some time ago, and this is the variety Super. So something is a bit special about this, but not this particular plant. Hopefully I can get that going again. I think that was dividing up some, I know what happens at Burnham's, I know what goes on. I suspect that was a couple of their big specimen plants in huge big baskets that they split up, and they didn't take very well, so they didn't root in nicely, whereas like some of the others that we're going to look at have rooted in nicely. Right, so the next one is the one with the fantastic story that goes with it, which for those of you who haven't heard it, I will go over briefly. This is Coelogyne cristata, but it's a particularly good version of that. And this has been cultivated in the wild, it's been cultivated from a version of one that was taken from the wild out in Thailand, I believe, or possibly Malaysia, I've forgotten, by somebody who was employed by the UK as a spy. So they were out there doing no good, up to no good, sneaking around and all that sort of stuff, trying to steal secrets and stuff. And they spotted this one in the wild, brought it back, and it's been cultivated ever since, and this is a division off of, you know, that long-term cultivation. This is some time ago. You know. Apparently that person went on to be the head of either MI5 or MI6 in the UK. Whether they still are or not, I haven't got a clue. Now this didn't have excellent roots when it was potted up, but again, this is what you look for with Coelogynes. Old tired brown roots that don't look too happy at all. Get them in new media and off they go. All the little white shoots. White hairy shoots. Coelogyne roots are hairy when they're new. Yeah, covered in fine hairs. That's the feeder hairs. So the existing root system is pushing on nicely now. And the new growth is pushing on nicely now. And that has just started to show some roots at the base. And what I saw the other day when I was watering, if I can show you, where is it? There it is. It's not going to be very easy to see, but the latest bulb here has got the new growth coming out. If you look at the middle bulb and look down at the base, you've got the flower spike, and next to it you've got a new growth. So I've now got a second new growth coming on this. So this is going to do fine. At the base of this growth, where it comes out of the previous bulb, you can just see the top of the hairy new roots that are coming out. So they're the ones that will reach the edge of the pot in due course. So this is doing okay. It took to the repot, it isn't sulking, it's growing on, and the old bulbs haven't shriveled. This will be fine. Yeah, so this is going to do well, which is good. Now that came from the new company, Portland Island Orchids, which is Simon Pugh Jones, who for donkey's years was the head of the Rislington School Project until he retired and bought a place on the Isle of Portland, got some greenhouses and runs his own business. Virtually all species, but some hybrids in there as well. And yeah, so his business can, you know, his association with orchids continues. So that's that. Now we get on to the big stuff. Now these can look as though they're not doing well, but you have to look at what there actually is, all of it, not just the bits that don't look so good. Because like with all orchids, they are a progression. Yeah, as new bits grow, other bits become old, and some fade away over the years. Yeah, so you have to accept that there are some older bits. So if we look at the plant from this side, you're looking at the older bits. These have shriveled, but they've still got their leaves. Well, that one's got its leaf apart from the end, and with that one. So at some point, this hasn't been getting enough nutrition or hydration, possibly even both, because the bulbs are so shriveled. Yeah, so that's acceptable on the old part of the plant. I'm quite happy with that. But then if you come around to this side, you start looking at the new part of the plant. Are these bulbs shriveled? Far from it. These are nice big fat bulbs, and this is the most recent stuff that's going on here. And underneath that recent stuff, lots of roots. Yeah? So we're rooting actively off of those three growths. So that's good stuff. So this plant is doing fine. I can't remember. This is Mooreana. Yeah, this is Mooreana, just the bog standard one. See, I was just thinking, I can't remember how this one blooms, but it's easy enough to find out. Is just look at one of the older bulbs and there's the spike coming right out of the centre between the two leaves. So that's how this one blooms. This has one of the largest Coelogyne blooms on it. They're absolutely stunning. Pristine white with a lovely deep gold in the lip. So what am I waiting for on this then? It's produced full-size leaves, the bulbs are swollen, so what's the next thing that's going to happen on that? Next thing that's going to happen on that, I hope, is 3 flower spikes. That would be good, wouldn't it? So at whatever time of year this comes into flower, with any luck, all 3 of these growths will bloom and we'll have 3 spikes all at the same time. That would be wonderful. That will be quite a show, if that's what it does. As I said, the older part of the plant is a bit shriveled. Now my goal, because these new bulbs have got good roots, when the next lot of growths come, yeah, these shouldn't shrivel because they've got good roots and hopefully won't need repotting because there's room for the next lot of growths. So these will stay plump. Yeah, that will put some strength into the next lot of growths because these stay plump. So that one's doing fine. Good one. I remember Arthur, when I bought that, 'cause that's come from Burnham's, I remember Arthur saying there was a set of them at one of our shows, you know. I said, how long have these been in the pots then? He said, they've only been in there a couple of months, but look, he got hold of one and pulled it and he said, they're well rooted in. He wouldn't have done that if they were loose in the pot. Not daft. Right, next one. I'll see if I can get this out of the pot, but it's quite tight in a black pot and it doesn't like coming out. Gotcha. Right. So again, what we're looking for is lots of hairy white tips on the roots. That's a good root system. For a Coelogyne, it's actually, I put those in the bottom of the black pots to lift them up so that the edge of the pot is nearer the rim of the black pot so that I can get them out. And the roots have started to latch onto that. So they're coming out the bottom of the pot. So be it, there's more than enough still in the pot. So that's what you're always looking for. And once you get root systems like that, you shouldn't get the shriveled bulbs. They should stay plump, permanent. Well, unless you just don't water it enough. Or you let it get too dry when it's too warm. That will desiccate them. Yeah. So older part of this plant has rooted in well, and the bulbs are slightly shriveled, but not bad. Certainly not as bad as some others we've seen. This one's still reasonably plump. But what we've got around this side of the plant is 4 new growths. They're all tight together, but there's 4 new growths there. Am I on camera? Yeah, just about there. So these are growing on now. Now I can't remember how this one blooms. Oh yeah, this one blooms out the top of the bulb as well. The only one so far that I can distinctly say emphatically that grows a spike from the base of the bulb is the Cristata. That one. So these, in theory, could bloom. We could get spikes coming out from the centre of these, or they might just produce bulbs and I'll have to wait for the next lot. But given that it's got a good root system and it's a reasonable sized division, it should be okay. And that's Victoria-Reginae. It has very, very attractive single blooms, unfortunately. They're big, but it doesn't have a spike with loads of blooms on. It doesn't work like that. So we shall see. I think it's a single bloom anyway. So that's that one. That's doing fine. I've got no complaints. That's doing well. And then last but not least is the monster. And I think this one hasn't been repotted. No, it hasn't. Oof! This is a biggie, this one. And this hasn't been repotted. Again, older part of the plant, quite shriveled. So when this was a division, it didn't take very well. Either that or it had already started to shrivel before it was divided and potted up. But either way, the older part of the plant is quite shriveled. Nonetheless, the leaves are okay, and this one is Mooreana, and it's the Magnifica version, which is an awarded plant. And this is susceptible to that happening on the leaves, and that will happen at the drop of a hat if it is even slightly dehydrated. That's what happens. If the leaves are actively growing and haven't reached full size yet, and it gets a bit of a dry spell or a bit of too much heat, that happens on the leaves. I always think of that as the equivalent of the concertina leaves that you get on some Oncidiums and on Miltoniopsis. So what's going on with this then? Well, on the newer part of the plant, coming around here, we've got bulbs like this. Lovely big bulbs, full size, good quality leaves. There's a couple of those. There's this one here and that one there. But coming out of the plant, we've also got these. One here, and one round here. So it's actively coming into growth or spike. Where do the spikes come from on this? I do believe they come out of, yes, they come out of the centre. So these could produce spikes. Yeah? Don't know whether they will or not, but the thing is, the growth is also the spike. So you can't sort of look at it like you do on Cymbidiums and say, oh, that's definitely a spike, because it's not. It's a bulb that will bloom, and the bloom comes out of the centre of the bulb between the leaves before the leaves form. That's just a bit unusual, but that's how they bloom. So you can't look at them and say that's going to bloom or it's not going to bloom, because you can't tell until such time as you can see the spike starting to poke out the top. So it's no good saying, oh yeah, but if they're rounded it's going to bloom, or if they're pointy it's going to... No, they're exactly the same. You just have to wait and see. So several new growths starting on this, and yeah, the previous new growths, nice, strong and healthy. If you look down, if I pull that sheath back, there's another growth there coming out of the base of that bulb. So this is the Magnifica version of Mooreana, and that means that the blooms are even bigger than the standard species. Same coloration basically, but just bigger. So again, that's not been repotted. I'd love to show you it, but I can't get at it. There's a huge big fat root that runs round the top of the pot here. Yeah? And it's got loads of tiny white shoots coming out of it. So even that really old root is coming into growth. So I ought to get this repotted, but I'm just worried that I'm going to stall it. I'm thinking on this. I might just leave it in the pot for now. And see how we get on. 1, 2, 3 new growths. 2 of them have got room to form a bulb like this, because this is right on the edge of the pot. This one's would be a bit squashed, but I'm thinking on it. At the moment, I'm not desperate to get that repotted. Oh, it is a big one then. So that lives there. Right, so there we go. Coelogynes. A massive variety of bloom colorations, from browns through straw type colours to creamy colours. Some are green. Green. There's one that's green with a virtually black lip. Very impressive. White. There are a set that are called the large whites. It's all in the name, you know, of which I've got 2. That is the Cristata and the Mooreana, and another version of Mooreana. You could say I've got 3. But yeah, they do vary in coloration. They also vary in style, from a spike with blooms on, to a spike with 1 bloom on, to a slightly arching spike, to totally pendulous spikes that are 1 metre long. Burnhams have got quite a few specimen versions of some of those. They have to hang in the roof, otherwise the blooms would touch the floor. They're an absolute spectacle when they're in bloom, and some of those may well be in bloom when we go down in a few weeks' time. I will see how we go, but because it'll be busy, lots of people, me sneaking off into the private area to film might not be on, because what Sarah doesn't want is, well, he's in there, why can't I go in? And then you start getting a team going into the private collection area that is, it says staff only. Now Sarah's happy for me to go in there, but I'm normally down there on quiet days where nobody really sees me go in the door, so they don't even know I'm in there. They might see me come out, but they don't see me go in. So I might not go in there. As I said, it will be busy with 4 orchid societies, and some of those orchid societies, members of those societies will be there, plus it's an open weekend for the public, plus it's advertised as an orchid festival. It's going to be busy, yeah? So filming is not going to be as easy as it is when I just pop down on a weekday, for instance. I've often got quite a large part of the nursery to myself when I pop down like that on a weekday. So there we go, that's Coelogynes. I think they're worthwhile, but they're not ideal for people with warm climates. They're not ideal. They are not going to thrive like they could do in cooler climates. What you're after is a reasonable level of humidity for most, not all, and reasonably bright light and not too warm, and they should thrive. The temperatures I've had over the last week, if those were prolonged, some of these would stop growing. They'd just shut down. They come back again, and therein lies a trick. If you have to suffer warmer temperatures in the summer, it is recommended that you stop feeding. Yeah, they need good humidity during those times, and they shouldn't dry out at all, but they're not growing. So pouring loads of food in the pots doesn't do them any good at all and can do some root damage. So cut the feed out during those hot periods when they're not growing. Yeah? And then in the autumn or later, when the temperatures start to drop down to reasonable again, you can reintroduce the food. So with many, it's recommended that you feed in spring and autumn, not in summer, and obviously in winter most aren't growing anyway. So there we go. And you know what, I've just noticed that must have opened overnight. We have a couple of new blooms, one of which is on the floor, which I can get at, and the other one I'm not so sure. I may do that later in the week, but although I say I can get at it, my back's a bit dodgy at the moment. But this is the Shelob Marie, not Shelob Tolkien. 4 new growths, at least 4 spikes. In fact, I think there's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 5 spikes on this. One growth has 2 spikes. But the first one's just opened. So spidery nonsense. And this bloom is slightly, I won't say deformed, but it got itself stuck. And if you look at that petal there, it's actually a petal and a sepal stuck together. They didn't separate properly. Yeah? We'll see what happens with the others, but they should be okay. So these buds will follow on quite soon, and these will be open quite soon as well. And then the rest of the spikes are lagging behind a bit, which means we'll get an extended blooming period. So this one's pushing out roots on the latest growths, which are also blooming, and it's started new growths, brand new growths. It's doing everything basically. So this is not allowed to dry out and gets reasonable feed every time. Although Friday it had a flush. Everything had a flush on Friday. Well, everything that got watered had a flush. So that's that one. Oh, and as I said, there is another one over there with a new bloom. Can I get at it? It was a bunch of buds that had been trapped under a clip, and I hadn't seen them until yesterday. And I've moved the clip, and now one of them has opened. I think I can reach it without... I'm worried about knocking the camera. Well, I can reach it. Oh. But the bloom itself is not fully opened yet, and the cluster of buds may not open properly because they were hooked up behind the clip. So Dendrobium Victoria-Reginae is back in bloom with us. In a very strange place. As I said, it was trapped under that clip between two canes, so the buds have got a bit squashed. Now this plant is not happy. It's been repotted, the roots were in a very poor condition, there are no new roots, and there's no new growth at the base. But it does have a green shoot that is still growing, it is still producing new leaves, and it's decided to push a few buds out. But overall this plant's not doing that well. I'm hoping it will pick up. It was left in its pot a bit too long. Anyway, we will see. But yeah, just coming into bloom again. It's often classed as a blue. It's not, it's purple. And depending on light and temperature, it will depend on the shade you get. Now obviously there's variables within seedlings produced from, you know, the same mother plants, but light and temperature can have an effect on this one and make it a much deeper colour. I think cooler and shadier, I believe, and you will get a much deeper colour. So that's that one, snuck up on me, the buds were hiding. Just about got that back where it goes. The other one that's on the floor, this has snuck up on me as well. This is out of my Prosthetia types. If you want the full list of names, go and see him. He's the world's leading expert on what these are called and what they might be next week and what they were last week. This is my Radiata, which is my most vigorous and the one that's staying pretty healthy. I've also got Black Comet and Midnight Star, plus the strange one, Chilia polysepalum or something that's actually in bloom over there. But this one again is one that's doing everything. It's producing a new root system. I don't need to repot it, it's been repotted. Yeah? So it's producing new roots, it's producing new growths, and it's producing spikes. We've got one here and one here. So it's doing everything. You know, again, we don't let that dry out. Right, so I now got to get everything back where it goes and get this processed. I've filmed this early in the day on the grounds that I normally film sort of around lunchtime, early afternoon, the Sunday one. But if the sun comes out, it's going to be too warm in here and I don't want to spend an amount of time with the fan off. So it's just gone 10 o'clock at the moment in the morning. So this is quite an early video, which means I can get it processed and get it posted quite early in the day as well, because you didn't get a video yesterday basically. All you got yesterday was the residual video from the day before where I decided to throw all my plants on the floor. You'll have to watch the video. But yes, we had quite a... I would class that as a major accident in here. We don't have those sort of accidents normally. But yeah, a plant fell over with the fan on full. It didn't get touched by me. Nobody was in here. But I switched the fan on full because of the heat on Friday. And the pots were starting to get a bit dry. And it took one plant over. And that plant pulled two others off the shelf. So we had 3 plants on the floor. And we broke a flower spike. But at least I've got a nice friendly cat who doesn't touch my plants. The nearest he's got to damaging plants is not in here. Never messed with the orchids, but out in the garden when the planted border was relatively newly planted, there were quite a lot of gaps. And I put some bark mulch down. And Mojo went, "Goody, I've got a new toilet." And in using it as such, some of the plants got hoiked out of the ground. That's the only thing he's ever really damaged. He's quite a laid back cat, he doesn't fiddle with things and mess about. So yes, so that's Sunday chat done. Back to having a spotlight. That doesn't mean there will be a spotlight genus or individual plant on every Sunday chat, depends what else I've got to talk about. But we had one this time round, and I hope you enjoyed that. It's a genus that in this country is quite easy to get hold of. Burnhams have a big selection, and far more than you see on their website, far more. There are a lot more species for sale at Burnham's than is on the website, a lot more. And they've also got some out in the private collection that aren't for sale, that are not available in the nursery. So they've got a large collection. So that's that. I think Trey has some. Lawrence comes up with some. Lawrence Hobbs comes up with some now and again. Normally Lawrence gets oddities because mainly he buys plants in, takes them to shows and sells them. That's how he works, that's his business. So it's mainly Phalaenopsis, Oncidium types and Nobiles, you know, Dendrobium Nobiles, mainly. He does have other stuff, he does have some Paphiopedilums, but where he gets the oddities is he buys collections. So he will take on somebody's collection because they can't look after them anymore, and that way he gets whatever they've got, and he does get oddities pop up now and again. But you know, in the main it's the buying in and selling on type thing, which is what Burnham's do. The majority of Burnham's business is the ones they buy in and sell on in the sales area. They never go out in the nursery. Out in the nursery is where they're doing their own hybridizing, divisions and all stuff like that. It's a different procedure and a different part of the business. So, and hopefully we will see some of that in a few weeks' time. I'm getting, it's annoying, I'll tag this on the end because it might not be that interesting for everybody. Some of my videos are getting clobbered by YouTube. Now, they're individual videos, it's not the channel. I'm not getting black marks on the channel, but what happened was some time ago, I found a company called Purple Planet Inc., I think it was, and they had music, and you could buy some, but they had some free samples which they said were free to use in your videos. And I liked a couple of them, downloaded them and used them in some videos. The company has now been bought out by another company and they've decided, no, you can't use those music. So they're clobbering those videos when they find them and taking away my monetization, yeah? Because it's now got their property within it. So all they do is stop me monetizing. It doesn't, the video's still there, it's still on my channel, and it doesn't affect the channel or its rating or anything. It's just annoying that effectively they are probably monetizing it themselves, yeah? So it's a form of stealing legitimately. There's nothing wrong with buying out a company, but changing the rules like that is sneaky to say the least. I wonder what country they're in. Choose from three. And at the moment I can't turn on the news without football or the election. There's nothing else going on in the whole world apart from football and our election. And what's going to be really annoying is once our election's over and the dust settles, we've got the next one to look forward to, haven't we? And I look at it like this. In our country there are two runners basically, one of which will be the new Prime Minister and the new party. Yeah? It's one of two. There are 7 main ones, but there's only those 2 that can get a majority and actually be the next government. And the 2 leaders are not really up to much. And that's, you know, it's a bit sad really. Out of the whole country, is that the best you can do? Then you look at the other 2 in that big country and think, is that really the best you can do out of the millions and millions and millions of people you've got? You've got what I consider to be a lying, cheating businessman who'd cut his own throat to make money, and another one that sometimes doesn't seem to be able to put two sentences together. And I think there comes a point where you are too old for that job. The amount of travelling you have to do, the amount of late nights you have to do, the amount of engagements you have to be at, and all stuff like that, the part of that job doesn't lend itself to being not far off going in a wheelchair, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a younger person's job. At least the two in our country aren't ancient, but that's what you get, you know. Somehow or other, out of all of the parties, whatever you want to call them, with all the elected members and everything, and that's the best you can come up with. It's flipping sad, quite honestly, isn't it? I don't know how you feel, but that's politics. We're not supposed to do that, are we? Because everybody's got their own opinions, yeah. And normally, it doesn't matter what you say, you won't change that person's opinion. So better not say anything then, probably. See you next time. Bye for now.